Hello, welcome to Light from Above. My name is David Kenney. Glad you can watch the program with us. Have a special guest with us, Brother Steve Healea. Steve, we're glad to have you and being a part of the show. It's great to have you in the studio.
Well, it's good to be here.
Yeah. Steve is the preacher for the Church of Christ in Orrville. When did you start preaching for them, Steve?
2002.
So you've been there for several years.
16 years. Yeah.
We'll show a picture of the building here and have worship times and also the address there and the website and all that. And the building's sort of an old building, but it was what was it before it was the Church of Christ? Was it a Methodist building?
It was originally a Methodist church.
Okay.
And yeah.
It's a real pretty building. We can show you a picture of the auditorium. A lot of woodworking in there, and just a real lovely building. And those pews are curved, which is sort of unusual in this day and age. They're usually straight and all that. But what's it like to preach for the Orrville Church of Christ?
Oh, the Orrville people are really great people. I just love it there. It's just, we moved there 16 years ago. Talking to my wife, and about a week after we'd moved there, and I said, "Well, what do you think about it, honey?" And she said, "It seems like we've been here all of our life." But we just fit right in, and the people were great to us and have always been great to us. And we're about to leave and embark on another part of our life here as we grow older and older in our senior years. But it's going to be hard leaving. They've been a big part of our life, and will always be.
Sure.
But we'll miss them.
Well, let's back up a little bit and let's talk. I have a picture of your parents here. Why don't you tell them a little bit about your parents and where you're from and how you got to where you're at now as far as preaching?
Well, I grew up in Springfield, Ohio, down by Dayton. Dad originally was from the Mount Gilead area, actually north of Mount Gilead, between Mount Gilead and Mansfield. They had a farm. And that's where my Uncle Guy, when Dad was like 10 years old, they trained horses for plowing. And Dad had gone out to get him for lunch, and somehow he fell and broke his neck and lost him. But all that area around there is where Dad was from. Mom was from South Charleston, just outside of Springfield. And but anyway, we grew up there, and I attended the East High Street Church of Christ in Springfield. And matter of fact, my grandpa was one of the ones that helped that congregation get started there and helped build that building that was there and everything. But we lived there and moved to Arkansas when I was 13. My dad was a truck driver and got transferred down there. So we moved to Arkansas when I was 13 and ended up in Missouri and met the love of my life when I was after I got out of school, and she was a junior, ready to start her junior year, and so anyway, we ended up moving to Tennessee, and then as soon as she graduated, I come back and grabbed her and married her and took her with me. But anyway, we ended up back in Missouri. She was originally from St. Louis.
Yeah, we had some pictures from the
oh
wedding
yeah,
there. And,
yeah, I remember that. Almost 47 years ago.
That's great. Yeah,
yeah.
Linda's she's a lovely lady. I always appreciate and enjoy seeing her, and she's always very positive and friendly. Now you mentioned you went to school in Tennessee. Where did you go to school at?
Well, I went to East Tennessee School of Preaching and Missions in Knoxville, and now it's I think it's the Southeast School of Biblical Studies now, and but really enjoyed that. That was in 1976 to 78 when I was a student there, and it was a blessing. I really enjoyed it. It was 2 years of really intense, study, and we left there and went to Brunswick, Maine. Oh, that was neat. Yeah, we loved Maine. That one winter, we stayed one winter in Maine. They say if you stay one winter, you're a Mainer. If you stay more than one, you're a maniac. So I don't know if that's true or not. But anyway, we stayed one winter, but we had so much fun. Of course, we were in our 20s and younger, and we skated and did just about every winter thing we could think of, But it was nice, and had a lot of Naval Air Base. There was Naval Air Base there at Bath, Maine, We had a lot of, Naval Air Base too, out at the P3s, anti-submarine or detectors or whatever, was there. So we had a lot of Navy couples there and enjoyed that time together. Matter of fact, the church building, Longfellow had taught school in that same building. And so Harriet Beecher Stowe's house is just up the street from us. So there's a lot of history. And the further east you go, the older the history is. But we really enjoyed it.
Great. I probably met, I'm not sure which one of you I met first, either you or your nephew, Tim Dooley. Tim's been up here. Matter of fact, he's been on the show. I interviewed him, and both of you big Cleveland Browns fans. Is that true? Is that just a rumor? Or
yes, no rumor about it. I am a Browns fan, and always will be. And when we lived in Missouri before we moved here, we had a radio show, a sports talk show on Saturday morning in Little Town, California, Missouri. And I know when the Browns went out that people were giving me Baltimore hats, and they trying to get me to come over to the Kansas City Chiefs, and I call them the Chefs. But no, I stuck with the Browns, and I always will. I told somebody up here a while back that when they go to the Super Bowl, I'm coming back up here and watching it with them. And I think the way they're going, it's going to be soon.
Well,
maybe not this year, but hey, I think the Browns, of course, I'm always a eternal optimist when it comes to the Browns.
I think they lost every game last season, so all they have to do now is win every game in the season. That'd be a nice surprise. So I'm sure you'd be willing to travel for that.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of travel, and you've done quite a bit of work overseas. I know you've been to the Ivory Coast. I'm not sure how many times over there in West Africa, but why don't you tell them a little bit about the mission work that you do in the Ivory Coast?
Okay, we've been going to the Ivory Coast for 20 years. Matter of fact, this last year when I went marked my 20th year of going over. And Isaac Noe, who was over here and had gone to the International Bible College down in Florence, Alabama at the time, I forget what the name of it is now.
Heritage
Christian. But anyway, Florence, Alabama is his sponsoring congregation. But we've had a great relationship with him. And when I go over, earlier when I was younger, I'd go over and spend a month. Now, a little over 2 weeks usually I go. But he gets me, or prepares for us an itinerary while we're there, where we're going to be working, what he wants, sends me a list of lessons, topics that he needs. But anyway, sometimes we're in the city in Abidjan or Yamoussoukro, and sometimes we're out in the little villages, and Pontchartrain and Donanay. Well, it's a town, Donanay is, but we don't know for sure, when I go over what he has in mind. But we go over there and serve. Made a lot of great friends over there. But the work over in the Ivory Coast is great. And they don't have the missionaries that will go there because they're mainly they are a French-speaking nation. So you don't get missionaries that want to go. They want to, of course, obviously go where they can communicate. Ghana is English-speaking. On the other side is Liberia. They're English-speaking. But to have French, missionaries, you just don't have it. And so anyway, it's been a blessing for us to be able to share the work that's there. And the church there is struggling because of their, I'm not sure how to say it. In Ghana, for instance, they do much better because they've had more influence on the Western world, where the Ivory Coast, their basically influence is the French, and the French don't do a lot of mission work.
West Africa's a big place.
But the people over there treat you great, and I just love them dearly.
Now you've been over there, you said 20 years. Who are some of the people that have gone with you?
Okay, when I first started going, Toby Miller, who preaches in Auburn, Indiana, we were good friends, and it was his contact that caused me to be able to start going. And he's gone with me. He hasn't gone for several years. His wife's in failing health. James Canner, a physician out in Missouri, has gone with us several times. But he's in his 80s now, so he's slowed down. His wife, I don't think, wants him to go. But and basically the last probably 5 or 6 years now, Earl Hopkins, one of the elders at California, has gone with me, and his son Randy has gone once with us. So some have gone. Lately it's been myself, and the last 2 times, or not this time, but the 2-3 years ago, Linda, my wife, she was able to go with me, and she loved it. And the young people over there just loved her to pieces. But she's had a lot of trouble with her knees and through the airports, and hasn't gone. She didn't go this year, and hopefully we can get those taken care of, and she can get back to going with me.
Now, what's it like to fly to some place like the Ivory Coast? Just the getting there. What's that like?
Well, it's not really too bad. I enjoy the airports, and just seeing the people. And now we go through Belgium. We have gone through Paris, and I would rather not go through Paris if I can, and fly Air France. But the Brussels Airlines, United Airlines, and then to Brussels and down, it's really unique. Of course, the security and everything, and coming back. At Abidjan, they'll give you boarding passes for all. So I have all my seats. But when you get to Brussels, you have to go back through security, and they reissue you boarding passes. So really, when they give them to you down there, it doesn't matter a lot. But anyway, hopefully now, starting the first of the year, there was a direct flight from D.C. to Abidjan. So I'm looking forward to that. If we can skip Europe altogether and just fly right to Abidjan, that would really be good. But I enjoy the flights. They're not too bad. And of course, you're flying at night and early morning. And we'll leave here, well, usually in the afternoon from Cleveland, then we'll fly out of either Detroit or Chicago, Newark at times. And then that evening you fly all night. And then in the morning you leave and go on down. So,
well, we talked about your parents a little bit and a little bit about Linda. What about your children? You want to tell them a little bit? You told me about your lapel pin there. And I wanted to make sure ask you about your kids. Why don't you tell them a little bit about your family?
Okay, our son is Shane, and he lives out in Missouri, and he's been involved in law enforcement for quite a few years, and he's now in California, Missouri, and he's a prosecutor there in the county. 2 grandkids, and a daughter-in-law too. Can't forget her. But 2 grandkids, and a little boy, Sawyer, is 6, started kindergarten this year, and then Sydney, 5 months. She's born in October. She may be 6 months now, or 5 months. But we can't hardly wait to get out and be part of their life. And we'll be about 40 minutes from where they are.
That's great.
So we're looking forward to that.
Got a picture of you here preaching under some kind of arch, I think it is, for a wedding or something. But then we have this picture here with you on the speaker where you spoke at our area meeting. Whose wedding is this? It looks like a wedding. Is that what that is?
Yeah, that's my nephew's daughter, my niece. It's Tim's brother, Terry.
Okay.
It's his daughter, Jordan, and they moved to Houston. They live in Houston, Texas. As a matter of fact, this is probably 5 years ago. Okay. But they've got a new baby who's born right around Christmas. So anyway, Terry and Tim, my nephew that was here, Tim, they're 11 months apart. So for 1 month, they're actually the same age. Yeah. And he lives in Springfield. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, Steve, what do you enjoy about preaching? You've been doing it now for several years. What do you find to be the rewarding or enjoyable part of it?
Well, I think the most enjoyable thing is communicating God's Word. I love doing that. I love preaching. And to me, just the gift, and not necessarily a special gift, but the Lord allowing me to do it, to be able to be His spokesman and to preach the word. And I love doing that. And I love being around people. I love the fellowship, the closeness that we have. And like I said, the people Orrville have been so good to us, and love them dearly. But yeah, I think being around the people and good times, bad times, through happy things, sorrow, death, and I've seen kids grow up. There's a couple girls, they're twins, and they're sophomores this year, or not sophomores, juniors this year. And when I came up, they were just little, But to see young people grow up is that's a joy, to be part of their life.
Any funny things happen that preachers always have the unplanned, unexpected, whatever, that sort of you look back and you sort of chuckle about it, or you might just chuckle about it right then and there. Any funny stories you recall?
Now, Mama told me not to get too silly. I have a knack of getting a little silly sometimes. Oh, I just can't think anything off the top of my head. I was telling you earlier, Sunday, a couple, Penny and Ben, had come back from Florida and just got back the first Sunday in April, and I called them Penn and Benny. But anyway, I have a way of getting my tongue tied, and no, the funny things that happen. I'm sure if we sit here long enough, I'd be able to come up with a few, because they're baptized an old fellow one time. He must have been in his 90s, and he grabbed a hold of the side of the baptistry and wouldn't let go. I was trying to get him under the water, and he didn't want to go, so I finally just got his hand off of it, put him under. Just little things.
Well, we had you speak at our area meeting here. I have a picture of you addressing the men there, and you were talking a little bit about some of the instructors you had at the East Tennessee School of Preaching, Southeast Institute of Biblical Studies now. Why don't you tell them a little bit about some of your teachers you remember?
Well, Brother Eves, it's funny, Brother Eves, Thomas Eves, you always called him Brother Eves, but Clifford Reel was an older man, but you could call him Clifford. And I don't know why that connection was different, but Thomas Eves, Clifford Reel, Jerry Dyer, M.H. Tucker, just teachers. Jim Waldron was one that was always meant a lot. All of them meant a lot to me. All of them taught you something different. Brother Reel was just a very humble, quiet type of guy. Brother Eves was very, forceful, and Jim Waldron was a fireball. And I remember he would take me up to when I was in school, I lost like 90 pounds, but he'd take me up to the track in Carnes there in Knoxville, and we'd run that track every morning. And he would start scriptures and make me finish them. But Jim, he was quite a guy. But there's always, and one of the most practical things about a school of preaching, at least then, I'm not sure now, but they were men who had worked, in the fields. Jim had been a missionary in Pakistan for years, and all of them had experience, first-hand experience in working for the Lord, and the wisdom and the knowledge they gave you, not only from the book, but their own personal lives, meant a lot to you. Mm-hmm. But the East Tennessee School of Preaching, I've not been back as much as I'd like. Their lectureships, I think, is in March, and I usually go to the Ivory Coast in January or February, so I hate to be going so much, so when I get back, I just hang home then.
Well, they're doing a lot of construction right now. Next time you go back, you may not even hardly recognize the place.
Well, I know the last time I was down there, they had built dorms mm-hmm. for some of the boys. We lived in a little trailer, and Steve Baggett lived in the other trailer, and Tom Derby, who preaches in West Virginia, lived in the house basement apartment. And so when Tom graduated, we got the basement apartment. That was a step up for us, you know. But we had really a close relationship. We had a hard time getting our car out of the driveway where we lived. The trailers were down, and so we had an old Pontiac, and Steve would drive it, Tom would push it, and I would get in the trunk for weight, and we'd get it up, talking about snow, when it was snow and stuff, we'd get it up out of there. But those are a few years ago. Yeah.
Well, I got a couple pictures of our area meeting group from one of our meetings not too long ago that I wanted to show, and I wanted to just give you a few minutes to talk about the importance of relationships of preachers in a given area, and what have you seen, and how important has that been to have preachers that you can talk with and you can share things with. What's been your experience in that regards?
Well, that's very important. You know, when people have problems, they come to their preacher. You know, who does a preacher go to? You know, and I have elders and are able to talk with them, and I appreciate Roy and Earl both and a great deal, and I respect them. Sometimes you need somebody that's been where you've been, you know, and I know Glenn Hawkins and has been someone that has been an encouragement to me. Don Cooper, who used to preach here in Wadsworth, and just so many of them that have been, and yourself, and the young kids like you, you know. But no, it means a lot to a preacher to have other preachers that are solid, that you can go to and just talk to, because sometimes as a preacher you don't feel like your life's so solid. You know, you let things slip away, and you just need somebody to sort of kick you back on the line. You know, we're just people too. You know, we have the same struggles and the same hopes and the problems that everybody else has, and but we just keep going, and that's what the Lord would want us to do.
Well, you're getting ready to retire from Orrville, and you told us a little bit about what your plans are. It didn't sound like a complete retirement to me. Tell us, what are your plans coming up here pretty soon?
Well, my plans, of course, I call it retirement, but it's not retirement. You know, it's another phase of our life. You know, I'll be 67 soon, and Mama's right there close behind, and we're going to be going back to Missouri, and actually we're going to be living in the country, and that's going to be different for us, although there is a Dairy Queen about 7 miles north along the interstate. But Lord willing, I want to preach at a couple little congregations and work with them, and I want to be able to continue with the work in the Ivory Coast, and probably I'd like to spend maybe a little bit more time in the Ivory Coast than we have in the past, but I'll be able to spend more time doing some footwork for them, you know, and maybe raising money for Isaac over there and things like that too. So I'm not going to stop.
Well, it's very, yeah, there really is no retirement on this earth from being a Christian, is there?
No, I know a fellow we worked with, and his name is Osman Magasso in Malawi. The first time I was ever in Africa was in Malawi, and I tell you what, he had us going constantly. And so Toby and I, it was like, how about a break today? He said, no, breaks will come later, but right now we've got too much work to do. We can't stop. Yeah. And so he kept us going. But really, you know, I don't want to stop. And the retirement that the Lord has for me is much better than.
Well, Steve, I really appreciate you coming in. I want to thank you for all the encouragement you've given me over the time I've been at Wadsworth, and we want to wish you the best in everything that you do.
Well, I appreciate it.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. We appreciate you watching our program. Thanks for watching. Before we close our program today, we'd like to take a moment and review this roadmap to heaven with you, since the matter is so serious. There are many incorrect set of directions out there, and sadly so many people are following them. For example, some people have been given wrong turns. They believe things such as faith only, works only, or grace only. Or some attempt to change the order of the turns, being baptized before they even believe.
Some people fail to realize what point they are on the map. Don't even open their Bibles yet, and they think they're saved already. As a person travels in a car or takes a hike, has to follow the proper directions, so we must follow the proper directions to heaven. Let's take a look at the directions on our roadmap to heaven here. You have to look at these passages in your Bible for yourself. We'll just list the steps, the turns on the way. First is to believe or to have faith. And then number 2, to repent, to turn away from sin. Number 3 is to confess that Jesus is the Son of God. Number 4 is immersion, or to be baptized, which is a burial in water to have your sins washed away. And then you're added to the church by the Lord, not by a group of people, or not by giving some kind of testimonial experience or things like that. And then once you're added, you need to serve and worship the Lord faithfully all the days of your life. And the key word's faithfully. You don't waver. And that's very important. We need to keep in mind, too, that in Noah's day there was a big flood, and only people in the ark were saved from the flood. The same is true today. There is no salvation outside the Lord's church. Where are you on the roadmap to heaven? Thanks for watching our program. Please let us know if we can assist you with further information for your journey.
In this world we have our troubles. Satan snares we must evade. We'll be free from all